What is going on, guys? Nathan here with an Overwatch gameplay commentary, and I am super excited to bring you this commentary today because I've finally been able to get my hands on Overwatch. My friend Justin actually had his account flagged for the beta, and he has been letting me play on his account. And I would just like to give a huge thanks to him. So thank you, Justin. You are awesome. And he will continue to carry my ass in League of Legends. Okay, so anyway, this video is a first impressions video. Like I said, I have I don't know if I said this. If I didn't say this, I have between 15 and 20-ish hours in this beta so far. And that's definitely enough to warrant a first impressions video. There's a lot of things that I like, a lot of things that I don't like, and a lot of things that I think need to be changed. First of all, I would like to start off with the most important change that needs to be made in this game, and that is the heads-up display. I cannot emphasize this enough. Now, some people might think that changes to the heads-up display are sort of quality of life adjustments and that they don't really matter that much and that they're sort of just nice to have. I would actually argue the counterpoint where the HUD actually does affect your performance. And I can't really prove this, but I can show you a picture of how ridiculous these view models are. So what is on screen is a picture of Zarya and her main weapon. She's a tank hero, and her view model takes up approximately a quarter to a third of the screen. Now, you can see that with the red outline, but if I pull up the second picture and I said, okay, player A is going to have something like McCree's pistol, for example. You just have a revolver in the lower right corner of your screen, and player B is going to have Zarya's massive gun taking up their screen, and what you find is that the player with Zarya's view model only has literally like 2/3 of their screen left. They have a clear disadvantage over the player who is playing somebody like McCree, who has just a plain revolver. So it is definitely noticeable, and it definitely does affect your performance. There are also other things that need to be changed with this heads-up display. The effects, I think, need to be turned down a little bit, because when you are, shooting or reloading or whatever. So, for example, when you reload Zarya's weapon, there's like a little like flash, and her gun like opens up. There's like a little flash as it like reloads its energy or whatever, and what I find is that sometimes if you're in the middle of combat, you're being fired upon, you're trying to fire back and reload, with the view models and the added extra visual effects on screen, it turns out that a lot of the time there's just an overload of things on the screen. There's just a lot of flashes, and it's almost just too much stimulus for the average player to take in all at once. I don't know if that's a common perception, but it's what I've heard from a few people, at least on Reddit, and what I've also experienced. There's just an overload of stimulus. So I would like the visuals turned down a little bit, the view models decreased, and next, an increase in the font size of health and ammo. And this is ridiculous because I guess I'm so used to being able to play Team Fortress 2 where you can adjust. Actually, you can have literally any HUD that you want if you're willing to make it. But in Overwatch, your two most important statistics, your health and your ammo, are way down in the corner of your screen. And especially the ammo font size is so tiny, where that is a very, very important stat to like always have your eyes on. So again, what I'd like to call for here is customization. Allow me to put the ammo like right under my crosshair, allow me to put my health right under my crosshair so I can always have eyes on those two things, because there is a noticed delay when you're in the heat of combat where you have to keep track of your health bar your bar, not the actual number, because you can't see the number, basically, because it's so small. You have to keep track of your health bar by using your peripheral vision. And that is just added to the barrage of everything else that's happening on screen. You have to keep track of your health bar with your peripheral vision and your ammo with your peripheral vision. And I can feel the time that it takes me to literally look from like my crosshair where I might be shooting somebody to look at my health and my ammo, when during that time I could be focusing on my target. These things sound so minute when you just hear somebody talk about them, but in game it is noticeable. And if you haven't played the Overwatch beta, you're just going to have to trust me on that. It is definitely noticeable. And then finally, I would really like to see the addition of a kill feed into this game, because it is nice to know for sure to have like a Team Fortress 2-esque type of white notification in the top right corner of your screen where it says like, yes, you have finished off this person, because it's just a nice immediate not only gratification but notification of like, oh, there's this color in the screen, like, you got him, right before you can even see the eliminated and then like player username. So I would like to see a kill feed, and that is also useful for learning when certain players are down in terms of the champions. So for example, if your Genji manages to get behind the enemy line and they take out your friendly Genji gets behind the enemy line and takes out the enemy Mercy. That is really important information to have, because in the same style as Team Fortress 2, medics going down in this game are really important, and it would be super nice to know that information. And really, like, to me, the only reason to not have a kill feed, actually, there really isn't. There is almost no reason to have that absence of information that is crucial in many cases. And the last thing that I would like to change about the heads-up display is perhaps the color of the text, because I even saw this on Reddit, and this person made a very good point, is that sometimes the white of your important like stats that you need to keep track of, your health, your ammo, blends in with something like the concrete on the ground if you're playing on a couple certain maps where like so many things are white in the game that happen to cause a big enough problem where they do blend in with the HUD a little bit. So again, the solution here is HUD customization. Allow me to change the color of my heads-up display. So that is very important. And this, like, the heads-up display is my number one complaint. As you'll see as I go on in this video, there are so many good things about this game. That's just my number one constructive criticism, is the heads-up display needs to be changed. Alright, so now I'm just going to move beyond that whole heads-up display thing and move on to a collection of things that I noticed or just have opinions of in no particular order. So when I first picked up Overwatch, the first thing that surprised me was that the time to kill was way shorter than I expected. I sort of went in expecting some leeway in terms of something like Team Fortress 2, because in Team Fortress 2, there's approximately, like, it takes 3 to 5 seconds for you to die in an engagement, whereas in Overwatch, it could be less than a second. And that really surprised me because, well, I don't know, I guess I just had different expectations than the actual reality of the game. So what that means is that you really have to be aware of all of the enemies around you, because it's almost like it's kind of a cross between something like Call of Duty and Team Fortress 2, where because the game is so team oriented, you have to be on like the control point, exposed, contesting this, but there's also a factor of like, well, shit, I gotta use cover and actual like stay out of the sight of enemies, for a certain amount of time because they could just melt you. It's an interesting cross like that, and because the time to kill is so short, what I also noticed is that being at full health is super important because you will not win a duel in a fair 1v1 situation at less than full health. And that also depends on what champion you're playing and if the opposing champion counters you. But I'm just saying, in general, person A with 100% health will definitely beat the person with 75% health. So what that also means is that abilities that heal you and any sort of like healer class is super important to the game. That also sort of surprised me as to how crucial supports are in the game. And another thing with this time to kill being so short is that sometimes the game can be infuriating, and I'm not gonna lie on this. You can easily get on tilt in this game because some kills just feel like BS. For example, if you are killed within the span of like 1 second by a Pharah who's firing rockets at you from above you, it's very real that you can't do a damn thing about that Pharah firing rockets at you. And like, if you are insta-gibbed essentially by this Pharah and you felt like you couldn't do anything about it, then that is definitely something that adds to tilt. But I would say the most important factor of adding to tilt is actually the time between action, because you could essentially walk all the way to the front line. Let's say you messed up and you got insta-gibbed. Now you have to wait. You have to wait for your death timer, which is approximately 5 seconds or so. Actually, it might be more than that. But like you're forced to watch a kill cam of your enemy like killing you, which is interesting sometimes, but it would be nice to have the option to skip that. That's just a quality of life adjustment that I would suggest. So you have a decently long death timer, and then you spawn again to walk to the front lines of the action. And I think they purposely made it so where it takes forever to walk back to the action so that the champion Symmetra is a viable option for your team, even though I feel like a team would rather run a healing support such as Lucio or Mercy than Symmetra, because Symmetra's teleporter is super nice because you can immediately rejoin the action again. Normally, though, you have about like a 15-second walk, essentially, back to the front line. So anyway, as I was saying, what you do is you get killed, you watch this like 10-second kill cam, then you take another 15 seconds to walk back to the front line, only to possibly get insta-gibbed again, to only repeat this process. So it is sometimes really frustrating because you have to wait so long to get back to the action and to restart essentially playing the game. Everything else is just I don't know, it's just too much time, I feel, in between action. So I wish that the death timers would be a little bit shorter, and I don't know that anything can be really done about walking back to the front lines other than manipulation of spawn points, but that would pretty much fundamentally change the balance of maps in terms of offense-defense, so I would rather just leave that whole walking thing alone. That's just going to have to be a factor of the game. And then I would also like to point out that there is a decently steep learning curve jumping into the game, because there are a lot of champion abilities to learn and memorize. For example, I think like the second to last game that I played as Lucio, which was like yesterday, I actually like finally remembered that he can wall run. And it's just like things like you have your left shift and your E ability and your ultimate. Those are obvious, but like you still have to understand, like, oh, that Genji has a double jump, and then like you forget that Hanzo can run up walls. So it's just like a lot of champions to learn, abilities to learn. Almost, well, probably less so than something like a MOBA like League of Legends, because in League of Legends there are hundreds, not hundreds, but there are a little more than 100 champions to learn and all of their abilities to know. But like it is still the same sort of style of learning in Overwatch. You just have a lot of heroes to learn and to learn to play, especially because all of the heroes are unlocked to you immediately. And I would also like to actually talk about that for a second. I totally agree after playing that this game is on a pay to play model where you have to spend, $40 for the normal version to actually play the game. I do agree with that because you absolutely do need all heroes unlocked to you at once. And to hide heroes behind paywalls would definitely break the game. Not really break the game, but it would definitely be a lot less strategic because counters definitely exist in this game. Champions counter other champions. For example, Mei is a great counter to somebody like a Tracer or a Lucio because Mei tends to actually like slows down people with her Ice Blast. So slowing down somebody who's super fast like a Tracer is very, very much a counter. So you absolutely need the ability to counter the enemy team comp. If you see that they have a Bastion, for example, I want to be able to immediately have the ability to switch to somebody like a Junkrat, who is essentially the demo man from Team Fortress 2, and start like spamming out this Bastion so that our team can advance forward. And the whole hero switching thing, I also agree with. It is nice to switch heroes in the game, and to have to lock into a certain hero is not as much fun, because sometimes you're just doing bad on a hero, and like you don't want to stick playing to that hero for 10 to 15 minutes in a row. It's like people, if hero locking was a thing, people would just leave games much more often, just because they don't want to play a hero that they happen to be doing bad at. So that is also very important. So I completely agree with the devs when it comes to that pay-to-play model. I think there was an interview on Reddit where they sort of explained their whole spiel when it comes to that. But let's see, what's the other thing? Oh, champion balance is super good in this game. I'm very impressed. There isn't a single champion that everybody has to run in order to remain competitive. And there isn't, like, because of that, there isn't champion stacking. Champion stacking is almost not a thing because you need so many different aspects to fit into your team comp. For example, you need a support on your team, or you are going to lose the game. You need a tank on your team. Well, you don't need a tank per se, but it's really nice to have a tank on your team so that they can be the meat shield for the objective. And you also need damage dealers. You need all of these different aspects, and there isn't, like, the fact that there isn't one champion that stands out is awesome. The only thing I would complain about, I suppose, is that I think Bastion's damage in his sentry configuration needs to be turned down a little bit, because he deals so much damage, when he's in that sentry configuration. But I suppose anybody who would be arguing the counterpoint would say that Bastion, like, that's all that Bastion has in terms of he doesn't have mobility, he doesn't have a lot of damage in his recon mode, so that's all that he has, which I understand, but I also think that his sentry configuration just melts people. It absolutely melts people. So I wish that would, whether the rate of fire is toned down a little bit or the damage per bullet is toned down a little bit, that would be a little bit nice. And I would also like to see Mercy buffed a little bit. Not her heals or her damage, but I'd like to actually see her movement speed increase just a little bit. Because as it is right now, she dies so easily, where she can fly towards a teammate, to start healing them, but a lot of the time when you're trapped, or let's say like a Genji slips behind you, and like you don't have any sort of escape, and she's a little bit slow. She has about average movement speed, I would say, but as it is, I would much rather have a Lucio on our team than a Mercy, because Lucio as a support can actually escape danger with his movement speed buff, whereas Mercy can't. So I think if Mercy was buffed a little bit, she could compete with Lucio, because I feel like Lucio's just the best support right now. But again, overall, these are just really slight tweaks that I would like to make. Again, champion balance is so good. I'm super impressed because I don't think Blizzard is known for their balancing. At least in Hearthstone, it's kind of like an ongoing joke in Hearthstone about how certain cards need balancing. But in the case of Overwatch, it's really good. And it's also good that each champion, each hero really does fill like a needed role within the game. For example, if you want to CC people, crowd control, you can play what's his name? Roadhog or Mei. If you want to deal damage, you have Reaper, you have McCree, you have Soldier 76. If you want to be a tank, there are tank champions. If you want to snipe, there's Widowmaker. If you want to support, if you want to build things, there's just there are very diverse champions, and I appreciate the diversity of the hero pool within the game. Alright, so moving on. One thing that I noticed in this game that is somewhat similar to Team Fortress 2 is the importance of spam. A lot of the maps, actually, upon reflection, I think it's like 100% of maps, it's practically universal, where the map design that you have is choke point into objective, choke point into objective. And that's especially true for control point maps, and rather for payload maps, it's a lot of like, you push the payload through choke points as well. So what you have is a lot of choke points in a lot of maps, and that makes spamming very viable because you can definitely deal a lot of damage because you know exactly where the enemy is going to be if they're on the objective. And that seems like common sense, but it's just the fact that you have unlimited ammo and your actual shots, especially something like Pharah's rockets, her splash damage deals a lot of damage. So you have three factors. Like if you consider the fact that you have unlimited ammo, so there's no downside to spamming in terms of running out of ammo. Your attacks, whether they're hit scan or missile based, deal a lot of damage, and you know right where the enemy is going to be in like 15 seconds when they walk to this choke point, are all factors where spam is definitely important, and it's just a big factor of the game. That's just sort of a similarity between Team Fortress 2 as well, because at least in competitive Team Fortress 2, I suppose, spam is a lot more important because like people will know where the enemy is going to walk. So I feel like the fact that spam deals a lot of damage in this game is probably going to be more important in a possible future competitive scene. But that's just something that I wanted to point out. It's not very important. It's not a bad thing. It's not really a good thing either. It's just something that's important to keep in mind, I guess. Like something that you might not think about. And the next thing I would like to talk about is actually a reiteration of something that I've said before, in that I would like to see more maps and game modes introduced into the game. As it is, there are 10 to 12 maybe-ish maps, and half of those might be control point, and half of those are payload, or at least it would seem that way. There's about like a 50-50 chance when you join a game, whether you're joining a payload or a control point map. And actually, a lot of the maps are both, come to think of it. You capture control point to unlock the payload, and then you push the payload for the win. But anyway, point being, I would just like to see more content added to the game. And I just can't see myself playing this game for months on end. Overwatch is super fun as it is right now, and that's mostly because it's new, it's refreshing, it's something different. But looking down the road in like 6 months, I can't see myself continuing to play this game. Maybe I will, I'm not really sure. But I would just like there to be more content. That's just like, maybe it's just me being a little negative, but I just don't think that there's enough in within the game as it is, and given this is a beta, to keep people around for more than 6 months. And I would also like to see a progression system. Now, this is probably going to be implemented. I I would be very surprised if it wasn't. But I feel like you need to be playing games and like earn something in the process. For example, if you gain like XP for each kill or whatever, you level up into something. You have some sort of progression system. Or you have a situation where, well, as it is, post-match, at the end of the match, you have like 4 people to choose from. The game will say, these are the 4 people which stood out the most in the match, and then you vote on like a person that you think was the MVP or whatever, or whoever deserves an upvote, essentially. Like, I feel like those points should accumulate into something. As it is right now, I don't think they do. I think they're just, like, I don't think they mean anything. But, like, I would just like to see some sort of progression system. Something where I'm working towards something. And then, finally, I would just like to go over some quality of life changes that I would like to see. I would like to see an audio option for music added, because as it is right now, you cannot turn off the music in Overwatch. The only way to turn off the music is to essentially mute the game, and I would like to listen to my own like playlists or whatever while I'm playing the game, so that is nice, or that would be nice. And I would also like to see a hero icon next to whoever is speaking in voice chat, so I can immediately know, like, who is talking, essentially. So, for example, if our Mercy is trying to say, oh my gosh, I'm like sick, my nose is plugged. If somebody is speaking in voice chat, and it turns out to be our Mercy, and they're saying, oh, there's somebody behind me, they're attacking me, like if they say Genji on me, for example, because Genji would be the most likely person to assassinate a Mercy, then the team needs to know that, hey, this is our medic talking, and it's important to keep our medic alive, so therefore we should protect our medic. Because as it is right now, somebody might say, oh, Genji to my right, Genji behind me, whatever, or, whatever, pick your champion. Then they might be like, oh, is that, like, a fucking tank? Because, like, deal with that yourself, bro. Like, tanks don't need our protection. Or at least that is the pub mindset. So, I would definitely like to see a hero icon next to somebody speaking. And I would also like to see death stats. So, I'd like to see, like, something exactly like League of Legends, essentially, where once you are dead, you can immediately see how much damage was dealt to you by what source, or what percentage of your health was dealt by what source. Like, that's not super important, but that would be nice. Just to sort of review your, like, why you died mentally, so maybe you could improve on that for the future. Like, if I'm trying to combat a Genji on my right and a McCree on my left, for example, I'm 2v1ing, I'm just that good, and I die to this duel, obviously because it's a 2v1, then I could see, oh shit, Genji dealt 75% of my damage while I was focusing McCree. Maybe now I realize that Genji deals way more damage than McCree, and in the future, if I find myself in a similar situation, I should focus the Genji, because I know that they deal way more damage. So, that is something that would be very nice to have. And yeah, I think that actually wraps up, like, everything that I've, like, taken note of in the game so far. So, yeah, pretty long video. Holy crap, 30 minutes. That is pretty long, but I think people would rather watch, like, an in-depth thing like this, rather than just, like, a 5-minute, like, oh, here's my thoughts, like, really quick, like, all of this is important. I don't think there's a single point that it took note of that's not important to the game's health overall. So, I will definitely be bringing videos of, like, champion analyses? Is that how you say the plural of analysis? Analyses. Anyway, I will be evaluating each champion in future videos, and those are going to be a similar first impression style, because I don't think I can really, like, I don't have, 100 hours on a certain champion. I can't be like, oh man, this guy's the freaking greatest. But I can say that, hey, this is what you should be going into this champion. Like here's your mindset that you should have with this champion. Here's what this champion does. Here's their role, etc., etc. And that's pretty much it. So that's the video, guys. Thank you all for watching, as always, and I really appreciate it. I'll include a poll of the day. I'm not really sure what of at the moment. I'll make up some interesting question that pertains to Overwatch. And, yeah, so that's the video, guys. Thank you all for watching. Again, feel free to leave a rating, and I'll see you guys later.